This week on The Travel Show, I'm in Norway because I've heard of what must be one of the world's most unique music festivals where the stage and even the instruments are made of ice. So I'm taking the chance to head off from Oslo to Bergen on a musical journey along one of the world's most spectacular railways. I'm going to look deep into Norway's roots, trying to get a sense of how this country's landscapes, culture and society are brought to life through its music. I've lost it. But first, I start my trip in Norway's capital city of Oslo. And it's here on the Oslo waterfront that a huge transformation has been taking place. And a big part of that was this rather spectacular building, the Oslo Opera House. It celebrates its 10th anniversary this year and is a symbol for the city's commitment to the arts. So I guess it's a perfect place to hear some traditional Norwegian goat horn. That's so good.
Thank you.
It's amazing that such a variety of sounds comes out of, well, I guess, is such a simple instrument.
Yeah, it's quite simple. As you see, it's a bone and it's a goat's horn, or wrong way, this way. Actually, it was not made for making music. The shepherds had it to keep the wolves and the bears away.
So this was a warning. This isn't pretty music.
Warning, yes. Not many melodies are written down, as we know, but some.
So would you say that there's something unique running through Norwegian music? And where does that come from? Nature
Gives me a lot of power and a lot of inspiration to make music. We are quite isolated. We didn't visit each other because the valleys, so people could work with their own thing in a way, like this. Still, there are people that do this and try to make their own voice. So I'm about to head off through the country to Bergen and listening to music along the way. But is there something that I should be listening out for? Is there something that I should be paying attention to? Try to find some folk music, some solo Hardangerfiddle music or singers or so. And also go to small jazz clubs. Look for the small spots. There are people working all over the place. So now I have my mission. There's a train to catch. Joining me for the first part of my journey is Jan Oslund, an all-round train fanatic and author of a book on the Bergensbanen rail line. So tell me a bit about this book. Why did you write a big long book all about this railway?
The Bergensbanen is an iconic railway in Norway, but also in Europe, I think. Very many people in Norway have been here. They know the name and they know what they will see when they are going here.
Along its 308 miles, the train navigates challenging but stunning terrain. At its peak of over 1,200 metres, it's one of Europe's highest railways before it descends steeply into Norway's second city of Bergen. But this elemental landscape posed a huge challenge and an engineering triumph for those working on the rail during its construction between 1894 and 1909, with around 20 people thought to have died in the process. At a time when Norway's independence was on the horizon, the construction of the Bergensbanen was much more than just an added convenience for travellers.
This line connected the east and the western part of Norway. Before that, people had to go around and take boats by the sea or small horse roads over the mountains. So the trains was opening Norway. The construction work was started in 1898. And at that time we were administrated by Sweden and they didn't like this at all because I think it could be used for military purpose.
So this was a sign of Norwegian strength, but maybe was not that approved of.
You can say that.
So in a way this is a symbol for the founding of the Norwegian nation.
Yeah. All this makes it special. You can't find this on other lines. This is what Norway is.
As Jan reaches his stop, I settle in. 3.5 hours from Oslo, the Bergensbanen pulls into Geilo, but that's not my destination. For the last 13 years, Geilo has played host to Norway's Ice Music Festival. But this year, organisers decided that after too many unseasonably warm years, that enough was enough. So on I go, upwards, almost 500 metres higher in altitude, to the festival's new home, in Finse.
You can really see it in the air. It is cold here. And it's this cold, the icy conditions and the elevation, that drew polar explorers like Shackleton to train here before they went on their expeditions. And people still come here for that purpose today. Word is it's going to reach a low of minus 24 degrees Celsius tonight. So I better rug up.
But what makes this festival extra special is that the instruments are actually made on the day from nearby ice. Among the lineup this year is everything from ice horns to ice drums and ice didgeridoos.
The concert's only hours away, and here you are making the instruments. This has got to be an unusual thing for a musician.
For me it's not,
No.
but for most musicians it is. Good sounding ice is the most difficult part. You cannot just go to your freezer, you cannot go to the nearest lake. It's with ice as wine, there are good years and bad years.
So why ice? What inspired this festival?
Well, it's nearly 20 years since the first time I tried ice. And I found the sound so fantastic beautiful. With this water, we can drink it after the concert, or we can just give it back to nature, where it belongs. And also the ice reminds me that we have, you have to treat ice so gentle not to break it. And it's like we should treat nature.
Why is this kind of festival happening in Norway in particular, aside from all the ice?
I think one of the reasons that we can do this and in Norway is that we are very lucky. We have for many years had a government that wants to support art and music. And this makes it possible for a musician like me that work mainly with contemporary improvised music to survive and to even be able to buy a house and have a normal life, It also makes it possible for me to experiment.
What's this instrument over here?
This is an isophone.
An isophone?
Yes.
The sound is lovely, isn't it?
You like it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, it's lovely. Any chance I could have a go?
Very careful.
I'm very careful. I promise to be careful. I also promise to show no ability whatsoever. You may as well give it to a kid.
Exactly. It works.
This is great.
But one of the biggest challenges of putting on this festival is the construction of the venue itself, an ice concert hall. And that project is overseen by Professor Peder Bergerud.
That's what you hear.
Peder and his students have been battling fierce blizzards for 6 days as they've frozen water around giant balloons and netting to create a solid structure. But each day's work has resulted in disaster.
We started with plan A and ended up with plan Y. Because every day, you know, it's just like you're climbing a wall, slippery and nearly on the top, then you fell down again. Next day you start the same. So, and of course this is, it's a bit frustrating, but that's how it is, and that's the challenge. You have to work with the forces because you can never beat them. Yeah. And when you work with them, you know, it's like having a good friend.
Well, it seems like your team is working very, very hard. Good luck.
We'll see how it works out. We just have to finish now. We have some hours left.
So as evening approaches, the finishing touches are fast being made around the site.
I really like it because it's kind of the sound of nature. So it doesn't sound like anything else you've ever heard. So people are really surprised when they hear it for the first time. We don't get to practice, so the music, it gets made on stage in front of the audience, and that's really special. And I think people are like, what, is this possible? And like, it's almost not possible, so it's pretty cool that we can do it. I guess there's a lot of folk music in it. It's very Nordic with the ice and the snow and the cold winters.
Just in the nick of time, all is ready, and we gather for an evening of ice music.
That was amazing. It was such a bonkers soundscape, and incredible to think that all of those strange sounds that were building into this big crescendo were made from ice. I think it's also a really interesting way to experience the landscape of Norway, freezing cold with the full moon overhead. Now, having said that, it is freezing cold. I'm frozen through. It's time to head in.
Next morning, the festival continues without me, as I'm back on the Bergen for the next part of my journey. Travelling on this stretch of the line, you start to appreciate the vast landscapes that this country has to offer. And I can't imagine a better way of experiencing them than this.
Well, my train's arrived at its destination, but my musical journey across Norway is not finished yet, because I'm in Bergen, a cultural hotspot and a great place to explore Norway's rich musical heritage.
Edvard Grieg, possibly Norway's most well-known and loved classical composer. Here in Bergen, set among woodland alongside a vast lake, a museum to Grieg has preserved and restored the grounds where he once lived and worked.
And now, you can see now we will enter the house, and this is the main entrance.
This year will be a milestone for the man, as it'll be 150 years since he wrote his famous piano concerto.
He really was a very much appreciated composer also in his lifetime. And we know that in Great Britain, for example, he was one of the most popular living composers in his time. The second part of the 19th century was going together with all this national movement in Norway. And Norway was by then a country together with Sweden, with one king living in Sweden. And he found this very young and fresh style, and I think that built upon that they had dance rhythms and folk music elements in these bigger compositions. I think he looked upon the folk songs as something universal. It had been surviving from generation to generation, and if you step through the borders you can find the same elements in folk music.
And some of that folk music that inspired Grieg can still be heard today, and one of the best ways to experience it is with dance.
Dance company Frikka perform contemporary dance all around Norway and beyond, that's inspired by nature and traditional Norwegian folk roots. They've agreed to come and show me some of the traditional elements found in Norway's Halling dance.
The dance, it's mostly sort of a show-off dance. Many hundred years ago, women also did that dance, but it's mostly boys or men doing the dance because we want to impress the other man or other women. Put the right foot in front of the left. Sidewards.
Believe me, this is harder than it looks.
And if you jump a bit on each step, 1, 2. Yes, nice. And then around.
But I think I'm getting the hang of it.
1, 2, 1, 2. And then we can move down here.
So what's the relationship between the dance and the music?
Maria played the Hardanger fiddle. It's our national instrument. Some people say the music came because of the dance and the other way. I think they're depending on each other, and for me and for many it's very important to use the music, dancing, and the music makes me want to do suddenly some steps and routines. Or it's live, it's nothing planned, it's just happening. Nice! Back in the old days, they used the ceilings to kick down a coin or just kick their heels.
Kick the ceiling?
Yeah. You know, there were a bit smaller houses back in the old days. But in the 1800s, the military started with competitions, kicking a hat from a stick, and it was about kicking the highest. And then it became incorporated in the Halling, the folk dance. Fantastic. So we do it as a part of the dance, and it's Of course, it has to be a good kick, and the higher it is, the better it is. Everybody in Norway, I think, if I say hulling, they say kicking the hat. It's like the main goal in the hulling, but it's more like the dance is the main goal. Kicking the hat is sort of topping it.
That was good kicking.
Finally, I wanted to get a sense of where all this is leading. In a former meat factory, a short walk from the city centre, Bergen serves as a gig venue and melting pot for artists of all types in the city. This creative hub is home to the studios of electronic, jazz, hip-hop and many other types of musicians, including Røyksopp. And it's where much of Norway's future music is being thrashed out.
These days especially, it's some new mixing of old traditions with very new electronic and experimental music traditions meeting.
Kjetil has a studio here and plays sax in tonight's gig.
Tonight we're playing with a guitar player called Stein Urheim. It's an electroacoustic, folk, jazz, experimental, ambient, something, you know. With the Bergen scene, I think it has a lot to do with the size of the city. There's only a few people playing every kind of thing, so you have to collaborate.
I feel like I've rediscovered this place through its music. It's a country constantly inspired by nature, of epic proportions. It treasures its traditions, but isn't afraid of looking forward, where artists are freed to experiment and are supported as a crucial part of Norwegian society, and where distinctive sounds can be found in the smallest of communities. If the Bergensbanen showed me Norway's muscle, its music has shown me its heart and soul.